Bolt is everyone's moment.
Bolt is community.
Bolt is showcasing talent.
Bolt is being courageous,
unifying,
encouraging,
authentic.
legacy.
Bolt is uplifting.
Bolt is connection.
Inspiring.
Expression.
Exciting.
Culture.
Bolt is empowering.
Bolt is diverse.
Bolt is Skyview. It gives the leadership class a chance to take ownership in really bringing our school together. Bolt is breaking barriers.
It's breaking barriers.
It's breaking barriers.
Is breaking barriers.
Breaking barriers.
It's breaking barriers.
Breaking
Bolt
barriers.
is breaking
Bolt
barriers.
is breaking barriers.
Breaking
Bolt
barriers.
is breaking
Bolt is breaking
barriers.
barriers.
Breaking barriers.
Breaking barriers.
Bolt is breaking
Bolt
barriers.
is breaking barriers.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bolt. We have seen a ton of amazing performances, and there's still more to come. Well, my name is Jada Bennett, and I'm going to be you guys' MC for this week's episode. Let's jump right into this, and first up is KG Ho. And remember, stay safe and wash your hands.
Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. So what I'm going to be talking about is something called cardistry. Cardistry is the art of shuffling and manipulating playing cards in very fancy ways. This is better shown than explained. Take a look.
I just can't let you go. Lord knows that I've tried to. You said I was the only one. No one likes being lied to. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all the bridges between us. I can't focus, I can't forget. I've been thinking too much lately. I just need to clear
Well, I hope you found that impressive. Now let me clarify something. These are not card tricks. If you want card tricks, you're asking for magic. And this is not magic. These are card flourishes. So, here's the difference. Card tricks, magic. Card flourishes, cardistry. Also, people who do cardistry are called cardists. Let's talk about origins. Simple magician's flourishes, such as fans, the one-handed cut, the spring, and a whole bunch of others, have existed for centuries. It wasn't until the 1990s an effort was made to separate card manipulation from magic. The people who contributed to this separation were magicians. They shared their ideas through VHS tapes, DVDs, and books. Other magicians saw these ideas and started expanding upon them. The term cardistry did not catch on until the 2000s. The word itself is a portmanteau of card and artistry. The art form today has advanced so much since its beginnings. The number of cardists in the world is still very small. I personally only know a few locally, though the community is big enough to hold conventions. The biggest one is called CardistryCon. It can be held almost anywhere in the world. I was fortunate enough to attend the one in 2019 in Portland. It takes place once a year and changes location every time. This is also the one where a lot of the world's most renowned cardists will gather. This is the reality of cardistry. Most of the time, you're dropping the cards. A lot. Even the world's most recognized cardists still drop their cards. It takes months to perfect any move. Some could even take years. There is also not a single move you will ever be able to achieve first try. The type of cards you use does matter. Plastic cards are the worst because you can't fan the cards and they bend way too much so you can't do moves like this. A good deck to use if you're interested in trying this are just your standard bicycles. Cards designed for cardistry are of similar or exact quality to these bicycles. The biggest difference, obviously, is the back design. I hope you enjoyed my topic, and to conclude, I will show you a performance of me shuffling cards. At the time I was making this video, it was my first time attempting to video edit. So, cut me some slack if it's not the greatest, but enjoy.
Thanks, KG. And now for Chris Folk.
Hi, my name is Chris Folk. I am a senior, and I'm going to tell you about the positive impact that music has had on my life. I grew up as an outcast. My parents said that I would always play by myself and not really with anyone else. In school, I was never really the popular kid. I would sit in the back of the class by myself and not talk to anyone. In between 8th grade and freshman year, I started to become increasingly more sad. These thoughts got worse over time. I bottled it all up inside. I never really told anyone except my girlfriend at the time through text messages about what was going on inside my head. One day my parents took my phone and looked at these messages. I was scared for my life. I didn't know what they were going to say or what was going to happen. They told me that they were going to sign me up for counseling. I didn't know what was going to happen, but at first it started to help. But I was still having these dark thoughts, and it was getting worse and worse by the day. It took many visits before I could tell my counselor everything. And it was in these many visits where she diagnosed me with severe depression and social anxiety. Even though I was going to counseling, I was still having these super dark thoughts. Around the middle of sophomore year, a few of my friends that were in choir would tell me to go to Follies, which is a choir show that they put on. I was kind of reluctant, but just went, and this experience is how I fell in love with music. My junior year, I joined concert choir. I made so many new friends, and I started to socialize with people. Even though I wasn't good at singing, I could walk into that class being super depressed and leave super happy. It made my suicidal thoughts go away. Mr. Denton was a huge part of the reason I fell in love with the class and with music in general. He just brought so much energy and positivity that it brought me up. And I wouldn't be who I am without him. This year, I decided to take 2 choirs, concert and vocal jazz. Both are an extremely difficult class, but it hasn't stopped me from following my love for music. Kind of the whole point of this is to find something that possibly could help you with any sadness that you may have in life. For me, it was music, but for you, it might not be that. It could be anything from running, being in nature, or just watching TV. Find something, because from what I learned, finding something is better than finding nothing. Thank you.
Amazing. And now, here is Miss Hurt.
Hey Skyview, this is Miss Hurt here to tell you that everywhere you go, people are going to make assumptions about you based on how you look, where you're from, what your name is, and they're going to assume what you can and can't do and who you are. And you should never ever let that be a barrier to you. So rock on, do what makes you you.
Thank you, Miss Hurt. Now, welcome Mr. Schmidt.
Hello, welcome to Bolt 2020 Breaking Barriers. It's the COVID edition. So, my name is Mr. Schmidt, and this is my story of the power of okay. A lot of the Bolt presentations from years past have been stories of major wrongdoings or major problems and overcoming major barriers. I have my own stories, but I want to tell a smaller story today of just saying okay to opportunities. So I'll start my story with high school. My sophomore year, I was sitting in PE class doing my stretches, and the PE teacher announced to everybody that they needed a girls basketball manager. You know, whole gym full of kids. I was the one that said okay. I spent 3 years managing girls basketball, made a lot of friends, had a lot of good experiences. One of those friends ended up being a person I stayed with. I met her family. I talked to that family a lot about my future plans and about how I wanted to go on to be a physicist. Her dad happened to be an engineering professor, and he said, a physicist or a physician? Because physicists don't get jobs. You should think about being an engineer if those are the types of problems you like to solve. So I followed his advice. I signed up for Colorado State University engineering program. While at Colorado State, I was sitting in class my sophomore year again, and the physics professor said, we need somebody to be a tutor for the freshmen for all the physics classes. If you have an A in freshman physics, we need someone to be a tutor. Room full of physics students, I was the one who said, okay. That led to me realizing that I liked physics and education far more than I liked engineering. I switched degrees, finished my program at Colorado State University to be a teacher, and then started looking for different jobs, going so far as to go to the Anchorage, Alaska job fair. Room full of all the different districts across Alaska and beyond. I had to walk booth by booth and hand out my piece of paper. The internet was not really the institution for finding jobs at that point. So I go through all these different districts. The only ones who really offered me a job was the Department of Defense dependent schools. So they asked me, there's a job opening in Germany, and you're the only one that has all the credentials to teach this small school on this U.S. Army base. Would you be interested? So I said, okay. Off we go. At this point, I'm married and had a kid. We all move to Germany, a place I had never lived before. We show up. It's a great experience. I teach high school science. I coach. Our family grows. But eventually, it's time to think about moving back to the United States. I really missed that experience and that community. We think about, where do we want the recreation? Where is there affordable housing? Where do we want to move? So we're looking all over the country. We realize Maine is an interesting opportunity. I sent out my application to Lincoln Academy. This is a school that predates the state of Maine, predates Abraham Lincoln. It is a private school serving the public interest. So it's just all public school kids, but has a school board independent of the electorate. They say, yes, would you be interested in teaching physics and chemistry? I said, okay. We all moved to Maine. Family continues growing. But along the way, while in Germany, the woman I was married to, I'd applied to the State Department to be a diplomat. Her name sat on the waiting list for 3 years. After 3 years, we had moved to Maine, established our family in our home, and the State Department finally calls and says, there's 80 different countries that we're going to be sending diplomats to over the next year. Would you like to be one of those? And we say, okay. So a quick stop in Virginia for training, and then off to Southeast Asia, to Burma. I'd never been to Southeast Asia before. I don't speak Burmese. We show up, get our house, start looking for jobs. The American library there is teaching English. And they said, you're a teacher. You speak English. Could you be an English teacher? And I said, okay. So I spent 2 years teaching English. Absolutely a fabulous job teaching English as a second language. If you ever get a chance to do that straight out of college, it's a great opportunity to see the world. So super fun job. At this point, saying okay becomes a habit. Okay, so 2 years in Burma ends. New assignment, Mexico, Tijuana. Do you want to go there? Okay. Now that you're here, teaching jobs in California, only 5 miles away, is not available. The economy is in terrible shape at this point. How about you stay in Mexico and do human resources and community liaison work at the consulate? Okay. That time passes. 3 years later. How about Canada, Ottawa? Okay. Now that you're here, it's a very long process to become a Canadian teacher, even though you have U.S. certification. How about you be a para and teach, assist a special ed student at a private school here? Okay. Now my marriage ends and I lose my work visa. I have to pick anywhere in the world to move to. I start looking around, different opportunities, different places. I find Vancouver, Washington has an opening, and I send in my resume to, about 2 dozen districts. Vancouver, Washington is the first to come back with an offer. would you be interested in teaching at Skyview High School for physics classes? And I said, okay. So this is just a little bit about overcoming barriers. And one of the quotes I want to end with, I'm not sure the source of this quote, but it's luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. So the important part here is to keep listening for those opportunities and to keep saying okay. So have I motivated you to try something new, even if you don't have a special talent that'll work out? Okay. If I haven't, that's also okay. I hope you have a good day.
And last but not least, we have Ethan Radcliffe.
Hi there. I'm Ethan Radcliffe, and today I'd like to share with you a new scientific theory I've developed. The noodle theory. Now you might be wondering, Ethan, what the heck is the noodle theory? Well, I'm here to explain that to you. My noodle theory claims that all grain-related foods fall under a category of noodle food. Those three categories are ravioli, lasagna, and pasta. A ravioli is a grain-related food in which the grain acts as a shell to ingredients within, just like how a ravioli has a noodle that acts as a shell for ingredients within it. A lasagna is a grain-related food in which the grain is one layer of a multi-layered dish, just like how lasagna has noodles as layers of a multi-layered dish with tomato sauce, cheese, and meat. And last, a pasta. A pasta is a grain-related food in which the grain is mixed in with other ingredients, just like how a pasta has noodles mixed in with other ingredients to make the pasta. Now I could make all of these claims and just throw them at you, but I don't think you'd believe me if I did, so I'm going to give you some evidence. I have written down here a list of foods, and I'm going to explain how each of those foods falls under each category of food here. First up, I have a burrito, which I consider falls under the category of ravioli. That is because the burrito has a tortilla that acts as a shell that wraps up other ingredients. Cheese, rice, beans, meat, you name it. They're all wrapped up inside of this tortilla, acting as a shell. Next up, I have a sandwich. Now, I consider a sandwich to be anything from a PB&J to a turkey sandwich to a grilled cheese, to a cheeseburger or a turkey burger or a hot dog, which I know is a very controversial opinion. Now, a sandwich would fall under the category of lasagna because it has one or two grains, that being the bread or bun, that acts as one layer of a multi-layered food, like how a PB&J has bread, peanut butter, jelly, and then bread on top, creating multiple layers in which one of those layers at least is bread. Same thing with a hot dog. Hot dog has a bun, hot dog, mayonnaise, mustard, whatever condiment you put on top, and then another bun. Or a burger, which has a bun, meat, or veggie patty, cheese, onions, lettuce, condiments, whatever you want, and then another bun on top. Now, sadly, a lettuce wrap does not fall under the category of lasagna because it doesn't have a grain in it. But if it did, then it would also be a lasagna. Next up, I have cereal. I'd consider cereal a pasta because a cereal is a grain like Honey Nut Cheerios or cornflakes or frosted oats mixed in with other ingredients like milk, or in the case of Lucky Charms, marshmallows as well. That's why I'd consider cereal a pasta. Next up is a taco. Now, you might think that a taco would also be considered a ravioli, but it's not. I consider a taco to be a lasagna because the taco doesn't entirely enclose the food. The taco is open, so technically it is a grain with layers of other things on top of it, meat, beans, whatever. So it falls under the category of lasagna. Next up, I have soup. Soup would be a pasta. Very self-explanatory, as soup is basically just cereal, but with different ingredients. But not every soup falls under the category of pasta. Tomato soup is a prime example of this, because tomato soup doesn't have any grain in it. It's just tomato in a soupy texture. So tomato soup would not be a pasta. Next up I have pie. Pie is a very complicated one as it depends on the type of pie. Pecan pie would be lasagna because the crust acts as one layer with the pecan filling acting as another layer. But apple pie is a different story. Apple pie has crust entirely enclosing the inside filling of the apple pie. So it would fall into the category of ravioli, as apple pie has a shell. So to categorize pie really just depends on the type of dish, type of pie you're making, whether it's a lasagna or ravioli. Next up we have cake. I consider cake to be a lasagna because it has multiple layers to it, whether that's icing or chocolate or ice cream, whatever it is, as long as it has one layer that is grain, it'd be a cake, it'd be lasagna. Now, that does come up with some issues because some people like to have cakes without anything on it. Those people are weird, but they are still allowed to have that opinion. In that scenario, I consider the cake to act basically as a plain noodle. This is the same case with the bun of a burger or the bread of a sandwich. Those things by themselves are just the noodle of that dish. Just as the noodle in ravioli without the other contents is just the noodle, making a plain cake just a noodle. Next up, we have salad with croutons. That one falls into the category of pasta, as it's croutons mixed in with a bunch of other salad ingredients. Pretty self-explanatory. Next up, we have a more complicated one, nachos. Now, nachos is one I'm still debating in my mind because I can't truly put together what it could be. Right now, I consider nachos to be a pasta because nachos, while being mostly layered with the chips being the grain with cheese and whatever other stuff you put on top of it, acting as multiple layers, I think it gets very mixed up once you start cooking it. The cheese falls in and it's just too complicated to truly decide whether or not it is a lasagna. So I'm putting it under the category of pasta, but that is subject to change. Last, I have toast. Toast is another thing, kind of like plain cake. If you're just having toast by itself with nothing on top of it, that's just a noodle. It's just a noodle that's been cooked already. But if you're having toast with butter on it, that's a lasagna. Now, this is kind of a complicated one because when you do butter toast, the butter does seep into the toast, making it arguably a pasta because that is technically mixed together, but I think it's more layered because most of the butter is on top. As well as if you put jam on top of that toast, then it is most definitely a lasagna. Now, that's the end of my list here. And that's the end of my theory. But I want to hear your guys' feedback. If you have any questions about my theory or want to try and disprove it, you can contact me on Snapchat at king_baboom, right there, Instagram at ethanolafuel, or Twitter at ethanolafuel. I will listen to all of your guys' questions and I'm here to answer everything. I hope that today I have presented you with something very informative and I have changed your view on all grain-related foods. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget, there's another episode next week. Share and watch it. We love you.